Hello, thank you for joining me today. I have a fantastic project if you love a chippy finish. This is definitely one of my favorite finishes to do. It adds depth and it just creates a very textural look, and you see so many different values of a color with only using one. So it's a fantastic medium, cracked medium to use if you're looking to have that chippy old antique look. So my name is Patricia Skelton. I'm a full-time decorative artist, and I'm also an artist in residence for Amy Howard, and proud to say that. Her products are wonderful, and I've really enjoyed being able to interact with all of her customer base and appreciate each and every one of you. As you jump on today, I would love to know where you're tuning in from, and if you've used cracked gesso, and if you've put it in a project, have any questions about it, please put it in under the comments as we go along. I think that that's everything, so let's get started. So this is my inspiration piece. The reason I selected this is I didn't want something traditional for my Thanksgiving gathering. I wanted to have something that I could use year-round, and this was advertised as right out of a container from France. Has a beautiful chippy finish, and I just love the look of this urn. So, of course, I had to find what would I put it on, and I found two containers that I wanted to use. This is the first one, and you can see that this was a piece that was ready for a Thanksgiving, but it wasn't the aesthetic that I was looking for. And this is the second piece, which has beautiful details on it, and I felt that everything was hidden behind this high gloss paint. So these were the two pieces. These are things that I found at the thrift store under $5. So let me show you the finish, those two items. This is the finish we're going to work on today. Let me get it up close where you can see. This is one paint color, milk paint color. This is Central Park. But look at all the texture in there. I just love the chippy finish. And the beautiful thing about this is it's never going to be identical. You're never going to get two that are exactly alike, but all of the essential parts of it will blend with one another when you're using it on a larger project. Now, I'm going to go into now the products that you'll need to do this project. Okay, first, we're going to use Amy Howard's One-Step Milk Paint. And the reason I'm going to use this is because I'm putting it on a really high gloss surface. If I were putting it on a stained piece of wood, I could just put my cracked gesso directly on it. But because I'm using it on this type of surface, I need to have something that is going to prep it to hold the milk paint. And this is perfect for that. One of the things that Amy has is she's built her collection to really work with one another, and a lot of the items you need to stick with her product in order to make sure that you're getting the best finish. This is no stripping, no sanding, no priming, no top coat. This is an all-in-one, so it's a fantastic item to work with. The next thing we're going to work with is cracked gesso. So this is the item that if you've used this, let me know how it worked for you. I think a lot of people have not tried it yet because they don't really have a full understanding of how it works. You can get a lot of different looks from the cracked gesso. Depending on how you apply it will be how much texture you'll receive from it. The color I chose for today is Central Park. This has almost like a slate blue, has blue in it, but you also see the gray. And if you apply a brown wax, a little bit of a green will come out. So it just has so many colors that will come from this. It's just a beautiful color. It blends so well in a home. So this goes with a lot of different looks. I always say the magic touch is her antiquing glaze. This does add a bit of a tint, of a brown tint to your project, which also is working on the antiquing part of it, but it's so light and subtle, and it also pulls the milk paint, so no sanding is needed. This will give you the look that you're going after. After that, because I did do a milk paint top, we will need to apply some protection. So you want to always use a wax after you're putting on your milk paint, or you could use even a matte sealer. This is the light wax, this is the dark wax. They always work together, and just make sure you always do your light first, and be very light-handed with both waxes. You don't want to over wax a project. And then for the final touch, it's using Dust of Ages. My packaging on this one is definitely getting worn from the use, and that shows you how much you can really use this. So this product will last you for quite some time. You're just going to need very light Dust of Ages. You leave it on to your wax, and then you dust it off, and what's left behind you can put back into your container. So where we're starting from, this is the sample today, and this is just from Lowe's. It's a piece that has a little bit of curve and detail to it. I always like to have something that, when I'm not demonstrating on the piece, that it has something as around the angle, so you can see that this has detail just like the vase had that I demonstrated. So we're going to start just by applying our one-step paint. One-step paint is very easy. You can turn it over, make sure that when you still have it in the can, make sure you get everything mixed and blended in. And then the next thing you want to do is, once you have it completely stirred up, is you're going to come in and apply it. Now, you always paint with the grain, but there is nothing wrong with, when you're first getting your paint on, coming in the opposite direction and then coming back and smoothing. So that is probably one of the, easiest ways to get a really clean finish. The other thing that you want to make sure is, be very light-handed when you're using your brush. The lighter you come across to spread your paint, the better your finish will be. And we'll just come in here. I like to get all the spots, and then after I get inside here and get everything covered. Also, when you're working with a raw piece of wood, you'll see that there's different textures in the wood as it's cut, because it shows different grains. So some of this is a harder piece of wood. You can see how it has cross marks on it from it. So you have to really get in there and move it around. Then you're just looking for no puddles. You want it to be a completely flat finish, and then you want to come back and just pull through. Okay, now this is how it looks wet. Move my paint aside, and this is our dry sample. So it dries a little bit darker, but not much, and it has a beautiful flat finish. Okay, so now what we're going to work on is adding cracked gesso. So the cracked gesso, I want to show it to you. You'll always make the cracked gesso the night before, and I wanted to show it to you before I even mix it up. Water, your tap water, can cause it to turn a light pink. But when you put it on and as it dries, it will go back into a white state. So this is 1-on-1 mixture, 1 cracked gesso to 1 part water, and you don't want to paint with bubbles, so I'll show you what I do in that case. I come in, put in my brush, and I just want to really make sure that it is thoroughly mixed. I wanted to show you how it looks the following day. And it's not as thin as milk paint. It's a little bit thicker, but it's not so thick that it will not drip off your paintbrush. And it almost has a jelly-like feel or look to it. So I come in and then I just pull off the bubbles in that way. The other thing you could do is you could certainly, put this through pantyhose, old, a pair of hose or a net, something to catch the bubbles so that it didn't, get on any of your project. Okay, so we're going to come in and do the same thing. Let's just start in the center this time. So we're looking for pretty much the same application. You want to get everything covered. Don't leave any puddles, and aim for full coverage. Okay, I'm going to let that sit, and then I'm going to come back, and when I come back, I'm going to make sure I pull out if there's any additional bubbles. Okay, same thing applies. Go with the grain, but you can go the opposite direction first. Now, I used 1-on-1 last night. So I used 2 tablespoons of cracked gesso, 2 tablespoons of water, and I can see that this is a little bit runnier than what I would really want it to be. The difference is sometimes how much you're putting into, a measuring tool isn't going to be exactly equal because one's powder and one is a water. So that does make a difference, and you really have to learn to, just after working with it, look at it and really know if you feel like you have the correct ratio. This will be fine. I'll dry it and show you what it looks like. I'm going to get good coverage with this. Okay, and then again, go light. You'll be able to see lines with your cracked gesso. Okay, I'm going to use my heat gun just to warm up a piece of it so you can see the difference of how it looks once it's dry. Okay, so there you can see it is really dry. Let's bring over the piece that I've already completed. This is one that I've already have finished before, and it's completely dry. Okay. Now, this is one of Amy's tricks that she taught us for if you want to create a chippy finish. So to get a really chippy look where the paint is chipping off, you come back with your same mixture, no changes. You want to add a sea wool sponge. Get it wet, not soaking wet. And then you're going to come back and you are going to apply more gesso onto your project. Now, adding this in this form with this tool is what's going to create all that added cracked texture. Without it, it's instead of being chippy, it's more of a light crack as opposed to a chippy look with paint, that will pull off. That's the way it's made. All right, so let's try this. And with this step, you may do a second coat. So again, you want to just look at it. I'm going to use my dryer. Now, because I added the cracked gesso with a sponge, it's a little bit thicker, and therefore it takes a little extra time for this part to dry. As it dries, you can already start to see that it is definitely going to have a chippy look to it. So you can start to see a few cracks in there. Now the full look isn't going to occur until after you apply your milk paint. Okay, so I'm going to pull over the one that I've already added, and you can see that this one's definitely ready for the milk paint application and already has started to have a little bit of cracks to the patina. Now the milk paint and the cracked patina, it's best if you make those the night before to get the best results. So our milk paint that we're using is Central Park. Again, this is how it looks. It's 1 part milk paint, 1 part water. And I want you to be able to see the blue in it. That's the pigment, but you can also see the gray when you're mixing this. Now, as soon as you add water to milk paint, it strengthens the concentration of color. Once it dries, it will return to the natural state of the powder. So if you want to create your own color and mix two together, you always want to do it in a dry state, and that way you can see the way the color is going to actually dry. Now, there's the pigments in here sometimes can take a little time to dissolve, so that's the purpose of letting this mix the night before, so that you're getting a really nice beautiful finish. And this one, I'll show you how wet that is. It's like painting with water. And as thin as it is, you would think that it'd be really thin, like a watercolor when you're painting it on, but it's not at all. So it's quite interesting how that can change the effect. All right, so we're going to bring over our piece, and let's start in the center. As you're using milk paint, you have to continuously stir. So you want to make sure that you get back in there and move it around, because all of the color will drop to the bottom, the pigment of the paint. Also, with cracked patina and milk paint, they have a shelf life of about a week, and that is if it's in a sealed container and kept in the fridge. If you make it the night before, you don't have to put it in the fridge, but if you your project lasts more than a couple of days, then you want to make sure that you refrigerate it and have it sealed. And then before you start your project, bring it out, let it warm up before you put the milk paint on your surface. Okay? Same thing applies. I'm really looking for good coverage, but I don't want to have any bubbles. A lot of times, you know, people assume, oh, this is too thin, it's not what I'm used to painting with, and they go really thick. If you turn the milk paint into a thick paint, you will not be able to get it to crack, or really the age, pulling it back and aging, distressing it. It will not give you the same impact as if you use it the way it's intended, because it's hard to pull up the paint if you go too thick. That's not how it was designed. Okay, so here you can see we have full coverage. Just go around this, get that little bubble. The one thing is, you know, the bubbles, they'll show up. So when you have things that are a puddle or a bubble like that, it does show up in your product. Okay, let's put this aside. And once again, I'm going to bring out my handy heat gun. And let me show you how this will start to form a beautiful texture, chippy look. Now, look at how the color starting to lighten. So you can already see some beautiful textures happening. And after this step, we're going to add the antiquing glaze. When you add the antiquing glaze, it's going to tint your color just a bit. And you can see right here. Hopefully you can see that, what I'm pointing to is where the milk paint is cracking. After I get it 100% dry, I'll pull it up a little closer to the camera. For a demonstration, you know, you're really sort of rushing a process. If you're not using the heat gun, all of this should sit about 2 to 3 hours in between each step. Usually what I like to do is if I'm working on a big project, just, you know, work on 2 drawers at one time. That's the best thing to do. In this case, I did 2 vases, so I just go back and forth in between them. But if you rush the steps, you won't get the same quality that you would get as if you take a little time with it. I think we're all so impatient these days, and so we want to hurry the process. That is what I have found, is take your time with it. Okay, so let me lift this up and see if you can see where it's already starting to crack. Okay, so our next step is using the antiquing glaze. So for this is one item that you want to shake before using. And then I'm letting my piece dry out, not only dry a little bit, but cool down after using a heat gun. And then you only want to use as much as you're going to use to antique, because this is one product you cannot put back into the container because you're going to contaminate it with the milk paint. So only use as much as you need. You're going to need some antiquing glaze, and then you're going to need fresh water. And the reason you're going to need those 2 items is because the fresh water you're going to use to soften your sea sponge. And then the second thing that it's going to do for you is it's going to clean your sea sponge. So you start with getting it wet into your antiquing glaze. That where you can see it. And you're going to do a first pass, which basically means we're going to get the entire surface wet. What that is going to do for you, it's going to loosen the paint. And you can see that it's already lifting. So some of it is lifting, but the paint really hasn't lifted. So let's clean our sponge. Trying to get you the best view, but it makes for a very small work surface. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer everyone's questions about the process or any of Amy's products. Amy's team is also on, so she's happy to jump in and help you as well. Okay, so now we're coming back for the second. This time you've left the antiquing glaze on for just a minute. You're pushing down and pulling up. You're not rubbing, because if you rub, this is again where it's going to show marks. And right now it still needs a little bit of time, I can see, because it's not really lifting my paint. Okay, it's starting to lift now, so I'm going to rinse. I'm going to move my clean water over, and I'm going to absorb some of the extra antiquing glaze that has left in the bottom. Okay, and then where you want more of your distressing, that's where you want to come back in and go with your antiquing glaze. Antiquing glaze too, you want to move around. So the point of it is, you know, you can sort of aim for the edges, but you do not want to, you want it to be organic in the way that you're pulling a piece for the antiquing, so that it looks natural. It's easier on a small piece like this. Now the one thing I want you to notice is you're going to be able to see the original coat, the gray, that is the chalk paint's color, was A Good Man Is Hard to Find. And you're going to see the gesso, and then you're going to see the Central Park. And also the Central Park, you're going to be able to see a lot of colors. So let's start to dry this a little bit so you can see how this looks. It really is like having it in nature because it has a mind of its own. But I think it looks beautiful. It's different than the other piece. It's more textured. And what we're going to do to keep this from just completely falling off is we're going to seal it with some wax to help remove a little bit of that so it doesn't chip off. We'll go ahead and remove some of it so it doesn't chip off later. So we want it to chip off now, but once we're going to use this in our home, we wouldn't want it leaving a big mess. And I have several pieces that I've done with a chippy look, and they do not, you know, it doesn't come off and make a big mess in the home if you seal it. You can seal this right now with the matte sealer. This is a, I'll go ahead and show it to you. I didn't use it on this example, but matte sealer would also seal this in before you wax it and help set this. So I'm going to bring over my light wax. First of all, we want to have something to offload. So you want to get plenty of wax on by moving it around. And then you want to come back and you want to blend it. So you're really blending your wax so that when you come onto your piece, that you're going to be able to spread an even amount of the wax and not have a glob of it anywhere. Now the wax itself is also going to change the color a bit. This is light wax, it's not clear. And so it also has a little bit, and this is where I said it can change your blue to have a little bit of a green look. So between your I mean, this piece is, if you're looking for a really chippy piece, then this piece did exactly that. So I'm going to pounce it a little bit, get off a little more of my texture. I did allow this, I painted this to get ready for the project, and I think that probably that this is from allowing it to dry for a couple days before adding the milk paint, the gesso. So if you're looking for a really chippy finish, allow it to dry in between, because that definitely has seemed to give it that extra chippiness. Now I'm going to come back and air dry for just a second. So here's what we're seeing. We can see a good man is hard to find, and then you can see the cracked gesso, and then you can see the Central Park milk paint. Okay, now before you apply your dark antiquing wax, you want to make sure that this is not feeling greasy, that it feels tacky. And then the same thing again before we add our dust of ages. So again, we're just going to come in, we're going to get plenty of wax on here, but then we're going to pull it back and really make sure that what we're doing is getting a nice blended brush. So I just saw a couple of pieces come out. Okay, and that's great because it came out on there. Now I want to focus on edges. I'm gonna get a little more wax. I think I'm in need of some new dark antique wax. You can see right there in the corner. And then just sort of don't push down, but sort of brush up against. And don't worry about flakes coming off, because that is actually going to benefit you, so that you're really knocking off anything that is so loose that it would come off later. We want to give it just a minute. All our chippy milk paint. Okay. All right, so we're going to add the dust of ages. I like to just go over it lightly with a brush. Again, this is a part that you would want to leave the dust of ages in place at least for an hour. So it really not only settles in, but it allows it to adhere to the wax. And that way you're going to have the best finish. It creates a very authentic look because it will be in the crevices, and you won't have to worry about the dust coming off. So go ahead and brush off the excess. Also, you know, making sure that your sample is 100% tacky with the wax, as opposed to being greasy, will keep your dust of ages from turning into more of a, almost like a black paint, as opposed to just settling in the crevices as you're wanting. You can use a lint-free rag to pull out some of the additional dust of ages. If you come in and you rub, you'll see a bit of a shine. You don't want to create too much of a shine when you're doing an antique, but it's okay to have highlights of it to help change the texture. Okay, this is the finish we created today. Very chippy. You could see all of it. When you feel it, it feels fantastic. But this is also the wax that we use is going to prevent it from continuously chipping off. So let's take a look at the project. Thank you. Check out my project all set for a Thanksgiving celebration. I think the chippy finish gives a charming rustic look. The blue milk paint complements the harvest decor, and with a simple change of flowers, it can be perfect for any day of the season. Thanks for being here with me today. I would be thrilled if you followed me on Facebook, Patricia Skelton, or Instagram at Open Window Restore. Wishing you a wonderful day. Thank you so much.